Hi everybody, welcome back. This is episode 35 of the YouTube channel dedicated to the development and construction of the Lake Erie and North Shore Railroad. And like I say, welcome back. This is a big episode, part 2. We're going to look at how to carve realistic rock faces out of foam. We're going to look at the putting the foam up right from the beginning, so the rough foam layout, just to get an idea of what it's going to look like. And then we'll look at how to carve it down and make it look more realistic. We'll also talk about the installation of a retaining wall and how to curve the products and things using hot air. Also, we'll take you down underneath and behind the layout to show you some engineering considerations that had to be taken while we're building this escarpment. Okay, so it's a really interesting project, and we're entering the next phase. So stay with us and enjoy. Tell your friends about the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. And let's grow this thing together. Okay, without further ado, you know what time it is. It's time for Railroad Soul.
Across the prairies to the sea, they laid the iron for the rails and we ride. They shared their lives, their hearts, and their pride. They had railway soul.
Alright, so this is the beginning of the escarpment. So all I've done now is taken some foam and I've sort of put it very, very grossly in place. So it's just to give me an idea of how it's going to appear, how it's going to look. Now remember, the escarpment goes up pretty straight. I've tried to angle some of these a little bit. I've tried to get variations in the surface. Okay, I've also put in the tentative tunnel entrances and exits. Now I'll change the camera angle. I'll take you behind in a few minutes here, but to show you what it looks like from behind. Now, I don't know if you can see over here, but we have 2 more tunnel exits and entrances here. And then at the top, I've just tried to get sort of a rough idea of how that's going to play out there. Okay, now all of this is just set into place right now. So what I'm going to do is I'll glue this all into place, and then I will take you behind, because there's some stuff behind that we have to consider also. Alright, so this is just a quick update on the escarpment. Okay, so I've, in doing the escarpment, I have thought about putting a retaining wall sort of in here, just at the end of the yard. Okay, I think that is probably a good engineering idea, just to put a retaining wall there, because you don't want any rubble coming into the yard. Okay, so the product I'm using, now the issue here is that this has to be curved in to meet the actual escarpment wall. And so let's go back over here. The product I'm using is this Sine Mauer Profi Plus. It's a retaining wall, extra long. It's by Knock. And here the instructions say, if you want to curve this, you should use a hot, like a hair dryer or a hot air gun to heat it, and then it should stay in place. Okay, so what I am going to do is I'm going to set this into a curvature, which I think is going to be the curve necessary. So I've just got a clamp here, and I'm just going to push this so that it's against a vise, just stationary object, could be anything. I'm just going to push that, and I'm going to move the clamp to hold it, okay, just on the end. So I'll come back in a second because I can't do this with one hand. So you can see I've got this curved roughly what I think is going to be the curve, maybe a bit more than I need it because I think it will relax out a bit. I'm just going to take this hot air dryer and put some hot air on it, and it's going to get noisy. Okay, so you get the idea. I'm just going to continue on because I don't think that's enough yet. But I'll come back when we have it molded in place, hopefully. Okay, so I've got this retaining wall set into place. And if I just back it up a bit, it looks pretty good. I made sure that it's going to fit so that none of the tracks are going to be encumbered there at the end. It's looking pretty good. You can see here the curve that's on that now. Fits in there pretty nicely. Now also I just wanted to point out, before you start gluing, make sure you tape your track. Okay, so before you get any kind of adhesives or fluids or anything gunky stuff, make sure you tape your track. And I usually go a bit farther than I think I'm going to need, and I usually end up having to tape it more when I start getting this stuff out. So those are the tips. And you're going to start using foam for scenery. Now I have a bit more stuff to take care of, like this little area here. What I'm going to do up here, I'm not sure yet. But what I'm going to do is start gluing this foam in now, because I've got quite a bit sitting there. So we'll get it glued in, we'll let it dry for a couple of days, and then I'll come out and I'll start carving it up a bit. I'm thinking with these big long straight pieces here, I'm going to dig in some grooves, and I'm going to put some other styrofoam on there to give me some kind of a layering effect somehow. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay, so we got the retaining wall set in, and that's kind of how it's starting to look. Okay, starting to look a little bit like something's going to happen there. All right, so I'm going to keep on working here. We'll get some of this glued in, and I'll be back. Okay, so here we are underneath the layout. In fact, behind the escarpment. So you can see this area here is the foam that I've just put into place. So now I've come into the back. I want to make sure that everything that we need to consider has been considered. So let's see if we can. Okay, so here is the first entrance right here. And as you can see, we have access to this track. Okay, pretty much all the way through. This is the track coming up and down underneath the escarpment. You can't see this. This will be inside. But we have access to that track pretty much all the way along. Let's go to the next one, which is this one here. So this is the next entrance area, and we have access to that track all the way along here. Let me just switch over so you can see the other parts. So we have access to this track all the way through, and we have access to this track all the way through. Okay, those are the switch machines that I needed access to right here, and here, and here. Okay, so it looks like we have our foam placed in a reasonable position that we can get at all of the track, because I know some guys have reported on not liking to have track going through mountains, things like that, because of derailments, and they couldn't get at them, and it was a sort of a bad experience for them. So I thought, I'm going to make sure, for the most part, we can get at everything. Okay, and so far, it's looking like we can. Okay? Just giving you one more look here at how this is set up. Now, we are going to have to put, I think, on some of these, we're going to have to put some kind of enclosure over this, but I'll just put a, just so it looks like it's going into a tunnel. But I'll just put one, I won't fasten it in place. I'll just put it there so that if there's the derailment, I can just move it out of the way. And the same is going to go for this one. And then the same for the other two, which are over here. Okay. All right. So hopefully that has showed up okay, because the lighting down here is not so good. But that's the plan. And so far, looks like the plan's following through. Okay, let's go back around and see how that looks on the other side. Okay, so here we are back at the front of the escarpment now. And you can see this has been glued in. These are not glued in, they're just sitting there right now. But all of this has been glued in. And you can see I've started a little bit of experimentation there on carving out that foam a little bit. And some of these I have actually put skewers through just to hold them in place. So at the top, okay, now this is just very rough right now. I still have to carve a lot of this foam down. Okay, and then you can see the retaining wall. Because I moved this foam back a lot from what it was when it was just sitting in there. So now that it's glued in, it's moved back a lot. So I'm going to have to curve this a bit more because we got a bit too much space in there. So I'll curve this a bit more. So using the same technique, hot air on the other side, bending it. Okay, so I am going to probably start putting some etchings into these areas. and carving back some of the sharp edges. Like here, I still have to fill an area in over behind here and along here. And then we still have to do this area over here where the car bridge, where the car tunnel is. So a lot of work to do, but I'll get back to you when we have more to talk about. Okay, so I'm starting to carve the rock formations into the foam, and I thought I'd just do a few minutes of this so you can see the technique I use. And I'm hoping that I can get this on the camera in a way that I'm not in the way and you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so we're going to give this a go. I'm just going to focus in a little bit. So I have a one of these utility knives. And I have a pair of pliers, and I'm just going to scratch with the cut with the utility knife, and then pull it out with the pliers a little bit, so that it looks like a little bit of a cracky rock formation. Okay, so let's see if we can do this. Then we're going to put a couple cracks down. I'm going to continue this one all the way down. And then in nature, we got to remember there's very, very rarely are there square, abrupt corners. So as I said, put another. So you get the idea of what I'm doing. I'm just going to continue on with this until we get it how we want it. All right, this is an update on the formation of the escarpment. Now, as you can see, I've completed some of the carving on the existing foam that was there before. Okay, just to give you an update of sort of where we're at. And then over here, this is the rough-in foam area. Just got the weights on it because I just want that glue to set. So this is the car tunnel. And then when we scan over here, so over here, I'll resolve those hills and mountains back over in here a little bit with just some sort of like little rock formations that the train will go through. And then this is the car tunnel. And this is the hill that is going to be carved out. And then over here, this is where the mining company will sit. And a few tips about doing this. I'm just going to zoom in a bit. And you can see what I've done here is I've put a few outcroppings on. So these are coming out. I've just glued those on. Another one over here. Okay, this is the lookout point. I'll show you that from another angle. What I wanted to show you though is I've started to fill in spots with crumpled up newspaper. Okay, that would take a lot of sort of plaster or anything else that we're using. This is just that retaining wall, which actually cracked when I was trying to bend it, so just be careful when you're bending them. You have to bend them slowly. I had it bent to the perfect sort of roundness, perfect angle, and then I decided to come out over here a little bit, and so this wouldn't match, so I tried to bend this a little bit more and it broke. So that's okay, I'll just glue that in, and I might even leave the crack because it might add a bit of realism to it. So that's where we're at with the formation of the escarpment. Over here, I've just built this up a little bit from before, and I'll go around and give you another angle, but I just wanted you to get an idea where we're at right now. I would say this is probably about 5 hours worth of work to get it to this point. Okay, so I'm going to change the camera angle. I'll be right back. Okay, so this is from the other side, and you can see the areas where I've started to put in the paper filler. There's the one tunnel exit. There's the other tunnel exit below it. Another exit over there. And then you can see the formation. Big hill on the other side. Just moving around here. You can see how the train is going to exit that mountain once we get that carved up. And now over here. Okay, now this is the lookout point. I thought it was cool in my research where people were standing here looking out, so I put one of those lookout points in, which I think adds some character to the whole thing. Okay, so I'll get to work and get this carved up a bit more so you get an idea of what we're looking at. And then we'll start the next phase. I think this is going to look really cool here. We get trains coming out of both those at the same time. And then over here, I think that's pretty cool. And I've taken to heart what people have told me about having the trains go through tunnels that you can't access. So that tunnel there is pretty short. Probably reach my hand in and grab anything if it derails in there. Okay, so let's see how things progress. Don't go away.